read on, because that is what we're reviving here. As warriors, as spiritual leaders, is the great path of the true way is what we must revive. These are the sacred scriptures which are not like other scriptures. They are the scriptures of those who follow the great path of the true way. They are not for the mocker, the unbeliever, the man of worldly affairs, or the evildoer. They shall move forward with the ages, keeping abreast of man as he advances. They must evolve to keep pace with his growing intelligence, but he must also evolve spiritually. If he does not, then they must assume the burden and come forth to lead him. Hey everyone, welcome back to Esoteric Night. Today we're diving into the Kolbrin Bible. This is the second video, and we're going to dive deeper into some of the lost or hidden teachings of Jesus. So, let me introduce the Colburn first. The Colburn is a collection of manuscripts from antiquity. The first 6 books are called the Egyptian texts and were penned by Egyptian priests and initiates following the Hebrew Exodus. The last 5 books are called the Celtic texts and were penned following the death of Jesus by Celtic priests and even Christ's disciples who might have escaped up to Britain, especially his uncle. And they date from around 1300 BC to 100 AD. And the thing about the Colburn for me is some of the most potent wisdom, spiritual text, and history that you can really find, and no one is talking about it. It's an extensive book, and today I just wanted to read a little bit from the book of the Silver Bough. And this book here is written by Elidor. Okay, Elidor, in the first video I made, I kind of described Elidor as probably and most likely another name for Jesus, and he was a teacher of men. And this book of the Silver Bough, I was just kind of glancing through it tonight, and it is totally profound at parts. It reads like a modern self-help book, a Bible. You can see the words and expressions of Jesus in many different places. And I just wanted to go through and kind of nitpick my favorite parts and just have a night with you guys reading this ancient text, this sacred text. And I don't often do this, but whenever I do it, I really feel invigorated and reminded of my place in the world and how to relate to life and all the struggles of life and who we are and what's coming. We're going to get into some prophecies, some wisdom, some spiritual light here. So let's do this thing. SVB 2:9. This is a very interesting passage. This one kind of hits on the twice-born mysteries. Oftentimes in the Colbrin Bible, the illuminated ones will talk of their twice-born initiation. And let me read this. When a man enters the great stone chambers of initiation, he receives an infusion of the divine essence. His soul spirit is awakened to conscious awareness and passes out to leave the mortal body still and silent within its tomb. He comes into the presence of beings who know the will of the Supreme Spirit. He learns awful secrets. He knows whence he came and whither he goes. He is reborn and awakens to rediscover himself. This is probably the 20th time I've seen this in the Colburn of a part talking about how these, initiates, once they're ready and chosen, go into these chambers of initiation, stone pyramids, deep in the chambers, right? And something happens there. They're there for 7 days and 7 nights, fasting, maybe drinking psychedelics, being infused with the divine essence, right? And they leave their body, right, to learn awful secrets, to come to know the mysteries of the world, right? And, this is also talking a lot about in the pyramid texts of ancient Egypt. So I find this very fascinating, the great stone chambers of initiation. When I heard my fate, I asked for a smooth path and success, and my plea was rejected. Yet from that day, I came to love life as never before. From that day, I was a lover of truth. Now I no longer have any trust in the world. I'm no longer deceived by its ways. I know the world and the works of men, and I know myself. I sought for my soul spirit, and I found myself. 10,000 worlds and their mysteries are meaningless to me. I found truth, and she stands higher than all the worlds. In the place of terror, I saw things. I learned the secret of the serpent with its tail in its mouth. I saw the workings of the spawn of evil and the fungus of corruption. I gazed upon the dark ones, and when they saw me, they became vicious. They sought to attach themselves to me, for burdens of wickedness are added to those who affiliate themselves with evil. But I was strengthened against them and came forth uncontaminated. Wow, in the place of terror. It's interesting. In certain initiation ceremonies I've taken place in, like especially with ayahuasca, I feel like I know this place of terror where you see things, like you see this infection that's gripping the universe or, reality. And that place of terror is like, it's really profound and it's also really illuminating when you come out of it. Um, it's very interesting. Some of these experiences he talks about and the experiences in the Colburn are reflected in experiences you and I can have. Um, let's keep going. This book, book number 3 here, he's making no claim to be more than man. He's kind of like humbling himself to all men, saying, I'm not a god, right? And like a lot of the Christian church is like saying that Jesus is a god and he died for our sins. But so much of, if you actually read the words of Jesus in the Gospels, the words of Jesus in the Gospels that aren't in the canonical Bible, and the words of Jesus found in books like the Kolbrin, he definitely is a man. He's a perfected initiate. He spent 17 years, working with the Hierophants of Egypt, the yogis of Tibet. He was up in Britain with the Druids. Like, if you really learn the history, and a lot of the history of Jesus, I kind of revealed in the last video and will reveal in the future through the Colburn here. He was a man. He was an initiate. He was striving for perfection, and he really entered into some of the deepest wisdom and mysteries there are. So he says, I come as a warner against those who promise an easy way, and I raise my voice against any who lull you into indolence by declaring the ability to intercede for you. There is no easy way, and no one can interfere for another. Each man is a master of his own fate. As each man plants, so shall he garner, and he molds himself, so shall come, and as he molds himself, so shall he come forth. There's always a day of reckoning. So this kind of talks about his preparation and the way of truth and some more spiritual, insight here. I'll give you a little taste of book 4 here. You mockers, who asked to be shown the man who has returned from beyond the grave so he can describe what it is like? You say, only by this will our doubts be stilled. Who am I to change the order of things and still your doubts? I have not come to bring assurances, but as a warner and awakener. Why do you talk like this? If my teachings do not stir your hearts to response, they will not be forced upon you. So he does, like, who asked to be shown the man who has returned from beyond the grave? This is really interesting. Like, so much more of Jesus is revealed here. There's so many books of Jesus in the Colburn. And like we really need some like deep scholars to go in there and collect all of these things and like, almost create a new book with the words of Jesus. Like, this is crazy. There's so many biographical information and words that no one has ever even read, right? Like, you go on YouTube and you look up the Kolbrin Bible and all you see is like the creation story, the first like literally 4 chapters of this book. Nothing more. I can't wait to get into the mastery of life, which is coming up here. So stay tuned for that, and as well as some prophecy. I'm going to have to go through this and like find the best parts later on. But let's get into some triggering stuff, some fun stuff here in Teachings of Elidor 6. I will speak to you about the commonplace man. He is one in whom there is neither spirituality nor spiritual aspiration. He is not righteous, but neither is he really wicked, and he does not have any ingrained evil qualities. Because he knows neither vices nor virtues, such a man is untried and untested. He does not know what are the qualities needing development and what are the evils to avoid. He serves the cause of evil, though he is no more than a mere pawn. No man can stand aside from the conflict. Men such as these are unwittingly drawn into the service of evil. It's almost like ignorance, my friends. Like, ignorance in itself is a vice, because these pawns are unwittingly drawn into the service of evil, and we can see that with how the mass media is manipulating public opinion, is manipulating, the aspirations, the virtues, the values of all of humanity right now, right? You can't stand aside from conflict. The commonplace man has an understanding of good conduct. He is genteel. He is cultured. People like him. He is at ease with them. They seek his company. He is useful to them as they are to him. But though he is full of worldly knowledge, he has little knowledge or understanding of the scriptures or of things transcending earthly existence. He cannot soar into the heights. His feet are solidly planted on the ground, but his wings are undeveloped. He cannot rise above the ordinary. His behavior is that of the common crowd. He is a commonplace man. He has learnt from earthly experiences and associations what conduct is right and what is wrong to serve worldly ends. This is not enough. To live fully and to good purpose, he must know more. This is why, this channel exists, my friends, is this quest for the deeper knowledge of life, right? The commonplace woman is like the commonplace man. She moves easily in her earthly environment, but is incapable of raising her eyes above it. She has so much to stir in the hearts of men. She can be so desirable, yet she fails to inspire them. She can goad them on towards earthly goals, but not to anything greater. She can fan the flame of ambition in her children, but cannot inspire them to look beyond the world. Commonplace people have commonplace traits and weaknesses. I will speak of one, revengefulness. An unjustified seeking for revenge springs from an inner weakness. The mean and servile person is most addicted to it. Malice, like revenge, is a trait of the weak, not the strong. There is spiritual value in submission to the divine will. Where the purpose is obscure and self-discipline required to conform, the value is even greater than where the reason is easily perceived. This discipline, too, has its value. It is the discipline of the heroic warrior, the man of courage and conviction. Let's talk a little bit about prophecy here. The Colburn is loaded with prophecy that I find so telling over time. He says, "Neither am I the prophet of peace. He is yet to come. I am the prophet to tell men of the frightener, though many generations will pass before it appears." This is interesting. I want to hear your thoughts on what you think the frightener is. It will be a thing of monstrous greatness arising in the form of a crab. First, its body will be red, then green, then blue. It will spread destruction across the earth, running from sunrise to sunset. It will come in the days of decision, when men are inflicted with spiritual blindness, when one ignorance has been replaced with another, when men walk in darkness and call it light. In those days, men will yearn after pleasure and comfort. They will go down the roads of ease, encouraged by women incapable of inspiring them towards the upward path. Interesting. There will be disbelief in spiritual things, but this will proceed from ignorance. It will be a thing of the lips, for disbelief is not in the heart and nature of man. No matter how much a man cries out in his disbelief, in times of turmoil, in strange and unfamiliar surroundings, when frightened by the unknown, he turns to spiritual things for comfort and strength. So true. In the days of the great conflict, do not pray to the Supreme Spirit to be on your side. This would be a futile waste of time. Pray rather, you be on the right side, the side of the Supreme Spirit. Hear my voice, for I tell of things to come. There will be no great signs heralding the coming of the frightener. It will come when men are least prepared. It will come when they seek only worldly things. In those days, men will be falling away from manliness, and women from womanliness. It will be a time of confusion and chaos. I really don't know of another time where men are less manly and women are less womanly, period. The old traditional values have completely fallen, and there's this widespread emasculinization of men right now. Massive movements trying to right that, but it's the norm, right? I have warned of the frightener. I have done what I am charged to do. Now one asks, where he shall seek for truth. I say this, they who set about it rightly will find the truth, no matter where their mortal bodies are located. It is never far from men. Truth is everlasting, unchangeable. Earth is false, because it changes and passes away. Truth and the Supreme Spirit are one, because they are eternal things. I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. And my friends, I've studied a lot of ancient books, and this is something that keeps coming up. It's kind of the story of Lilith. And it says, in those days, men will yearn after pleasure and comfort. They will go down roads of ease, encouraged by women incapable of inspiring them towards the upward path. This is interesting because, funny enough, the sex symbols control humanity. Whatever women as a whole generally want, right, in a man, men will seek to emulate, right? Back in the days of old, really old, like in the Colburn, it talks about this, how the what woman desired sexually or to partner with was one of the most important critical pieces of a nation, of a society, of a tribe. Because if women wanted truly noble, virtuous, and great men, men will strive towards that, period. Because men, they want a wife. They want to be worthy of the wife. They want to earn the best wife. That's why men compete. They compete so that they're worthy and they're like sexually fit to have the best woman they can, right? But if women value things that help propel man upward and inspire him upward on the upward path, then society will be right and strong. And the story of Lilith, as it goes in, I think this was from like the Zohar or something, I can't remember. But Lilith lusted after men for his physical appearance, right? And they were caught having sex in the forest before marriage. And they were both exiled, this man and this woman, Lilith, right? And Lilith, as hunters went out and stuff, Lilith started seducing and like building this band of men who were allowed to sleep with her. And other women they kind of seduced into their cult, their outside cult of the nation. They were saying, oh, like, we don't need to follow the sanctity of marriage. And also, like, I want to sleep with him for these reasons, not the reasons that our elders say are important, right? And all these women agreed and they got together and they started doing this. And these men, right, basically sought to emulate whatever the woman wanted, okay? And it created this weird, chaotic, decadent mess, right? And this mess eventually grew and grew and grew and overtook the divine tribe, the righteous ones, right? They were overtook because the society had fallen into lust. Very interesting. And even in the Vedic scriptures, right? They talk about the Kali Yuga. And Kali is a demon goddess of sex in a way. And in the Kali Yuga, right? It will be known by its sexual degeneracy. When women lust after, because women all of a sudden lower their standards of what kind of men they want, right? And then men fall to those standards. And then there's no longer strong men, and women don't demand strong and virtuous men. And then womanliness and manliness go out the window, and it's just like this cesspool where everyone is super confused. Does that sound familiar? Just wondering. SVB 725, moving on here. Everyone suffers from certain fears in one form or another. The feelings of anxiety, doubt, frustration, and despair are only normal, but to be overwhelmed by them is a sign of weakness and immaturity. Therefore, to those who are fearful and anxious or have doubts, more will be sent, for this is meant to be experienced and overcome. Only by this mean can man prepare himself for the greater tests ahead. Calmness, love, steadfastness, and tenacity are the sentinels outside the first gate of spiritual development. Mere ceremonial, however uplifting, cannot of itself bring the soul spirit of man into contact with the powers above. Something more is required. Mere ceremony is not adequate, is what he's saying here. Like, spirituality in this sense here, which I really subscribe to. Spirituality in this sense is holistic. It is based first and foremost in morality, in your discipline, in your calmness, in your love, in your steadfastness, in your tenacity, right? Like in your courage, in your capacity to self-overcome. Like these things build the moral foundation and the spiritual castle for which contact with the higher powers can be achieved. So much of the New Age spirituality is going like right to how do I astral project? How do I let me go do ayahuasca? Let me go do these big ceremonies. Let me, meditate and do all these things. But really, it starts in your daily life and daily living. And he also mentions this idea of overcome. Like doubts and all these hardships of life, they're there for you. They're meant to be overcome. Like Jesus throughout this book and so much of the Kolbrin is a testament to self-overcoming and talks so much about self-overcoming, kind of that Nietzschean idea that the overman, the perfected initiate, like the goal is attained through constant self-overcoming, through facing a resistance of some kind, right? And learning to overcome it, finding the resources, harnessing the resources within, and growing through resistances is how higher men and women are born, right? So, on that note of self overcoming, let's go to chapter 8. Elidor speaks to his disciples. I marked this one down as one of my favorites, and this is on the mastery of life. Please hit that like button if you made it this far. Drop time codes of your favorite spots. I have chosen you from the many because of your eagerness, your attentiveness, your sincerity, and your self discipline. These are the basic qualities required. You must also prove yourself loyal and adaptable, strong and trustworthy, intelligent and unselfish, free of all vices and bad traits, efficient, self-reliant, reliant, and stable. That is a high order of disciples, you know. When I was given my prophethood, I was told to initiate only the worthy persons who had proven their self-mastery and trustworthiness. Each of you must snap the knot of the heart. You must study the scriptures constantly, and apart from these, read words which are beautiful, inspiring, and true. You must constantly strive for tranquility of heart, for self-control, for self-harmony. Be kind and considerate at all times, and always maintain purity of thought. Live good lives, practice frugality, but false austerity for your own inner edification is impure. When self-control or self-discipline become self-inflicted torture, or when their intent is to hurt another, then they are servants of evil. However, sacrifices such as I have taught, the kindly acts of everyday living, are not to be abandoned because you are disciples. Strive each day to achieve greater self-harmony, for this is the swiftest path upward. Wow, the words of Jesus. Strive every day to achieve greater self-harmony, for this is the swiftest path upward. On my other channel, Wisdom Warriors, I've been talking a lot about the Warrior's Way. I'm writing a book about the Warrior's Way. And the Warrior's Way has everything to do with self-harmony and self-discipline. And, you know, like for the warrior, each day is about the mastery of the different impulses going on within and living and embodying your best way of being and creating great harmony inside and outside of the vehicle, right? This idea of wa in ancient Japan, wa, W-A, right, means harmony with the oneness of all things, right? And it was like one of the highest virtues, just as harmony was one of the highest virtues to Spartan warriors, to warriors all across the globe. For this is the swiftest path upward. I think this is why a lot of initiates were chosen of the warrior class, because they already had the harmony and self-discipline. The senses of the body and cravings must be disciplined, otherwise they would assume control. It is not sufficient to be spiritually developed. You must ensure the body is completely controlled by the soul spirit within. Therefore, you must not succumb before the rigors of life. You must not pamper yourselves. You must obtain victory over heat and cold, over the cravings for food and drink, over the weaknesses of the flesh, and over the call of comfort. You must cultivate persistence and resolution, for determination is essential to the path. Again, this is the warrior's way. The warrior's way lives with the warrior spirit, and the warrior spirit is founded on absolute determination, because for the warrior, it's do or die. Let's talk about the virtues. I kind of hit on this, the womanly virtues and the masculine virtues, and this is going to trigger some, but let's do it. Let's see what Elidor has to say here. The woman must practice all womanly virtues, such as decorum, decency, pity, modesty, sincerity, devotion, purity in all things, cleanliness, and love of love. They must be free of all sensuality, lewdness, and crudeness. They must maintain an evenness of mind through all things, whether pleasant or unpleasant. They must aim for a single outpouring of pure love, a love never straying, never deceptive. They must have contentment of heart, so that they can enjoy solitude, avoiding vain enjoyments and noisy multitude. Interesting. I don't agree with every part of that, but I do agree there are womanly virtues, right? And so many women right now in the modern day reject being told that there's any way to be. And I get that. Like the woman's liberation and, totally get it. But also there is a good way to be, and maybe you should think about that if you are a woman watching this. The men must seek contentment and calmness within, and outwardly display a steadfast and unruffled front. Again, like I agree, but I take it with a grain of salt. Like I think it's good to be, vulnerable with your brothers at times. They must be courageous, generous, truthful, strong in character, and healthy in body. Support. They must cheerfully accept austerity and have the ability to endure privation, solitude, and a rigorous life. They will have a distaste for aggression, for bullying, for the arrogant and haughty, for the cruel, and for the boasters. So many people say masculinity is toxic today. I wholeheartedly disagree. The absence of embodied masculinity is what is toxic. The aggressive, the bullying, the arrogant, the haughty, the self-centered, the spiteful, those are all weak men, right? Strong, embodied men are nurturing, they're valiant, they're protective, right? And they're community-centric, they're family-centric instead of self-centered, right? In men and women, there will be a constant yearning to awaken the soul spirit. There is to be an ideal to be upheld and a vision to follow. You may practice all things and follow any way of life consistent with the spiritual aims set out in the scriptures. I like this. This is again why I love the Kolbrin. It's not really dogmatic. Like it might say women must, possess decorum, decency, pity, modesty, blah blah blah. But then it's like you may practice all these things and follow any way of life consistent with the spiritual aims set out in the scriptures or consistent with the spiritual aims. It's not super dogmatic. In seeking contentment and peace, beware that you do not fall into pits of complacency, passiveness, and inertia. Apathy also sets its trap, and when caught in any of these, you will be doomed to a spiritual death. The purpose of earthly life is to experience. Therefore, be wise enough to understand that though contentment and peace may be desirable, they are no more than that. They are not prime objectives. Contentment and peace, very desirable. So much of like Eckhart Tolle and like a lot of the New Age spiritual teachings, they got some good stuff in there, but also like they're selling the aim of peace and contentment and like mindfulness and enlightenment, which is like sold as some kind of epiphany, right? And I mean, if you read any one of merit, any philosophy of merit, if you read these scriptures, for instance, you start to see that like contentment and peace are enjoyable, but they're not the aim. They're not the total aim of life, right? The aim of life is to grow, is to evolve. And you can only grow and evolve through stress, through resistance, through tribulation. In fact, the true spiritual growth in life happens through how you bear suffering and how you take life and what you make life, in times of ease where there's not a lot of suffering. The purpose of earthly life is to experience, right? It's not to sit on some mountain in contentment and peace, although that may be desirable. Oh, we're about to get into some more triggering stuff, so fasten your seatbelts here. There are two kinds of people in the world. There are those who must chase enjoyment and pleasure because there is no happiness within them. They are empty and have to suck happiness from people with whom they associate or from their environment, or have to obtain it by external stimulation. These are the spiritually deficient. Then there are those who are inwardly happy. They shed joy and contentment wherever they go. They are a lamp of happiness giving out a bright glow, which all may enjoy. Those can enjoy external things and find happiness outside of themselves, but are not dependent on them. They are the spiritually healthy. So spiritual health is the ability to find inward joy, right? Some people are like the uncomprehending butterflies, fluttering aimlessly from flower to flower of sensation and pleasure. Then there are the spiritually strong, who are like hawk-eyed birds, flying directly towards their objective, riding high above the lower creatures. Those are the two kinds of people, but the spiritually deficient cannot recognize themselves. This is interesting to me. Can you think of anyone who is a fluttering, aimless butterfly, going flower to flower of sensation and pleasure? It's really interesting to me. There's this like I see this a lot with men, and I see this a lot with women. I'm thinking of an example right now of like this tantric sexual movement that's kind of like taking over a lot of spirituality, especially on the feminine side of spirituality. And it's all about like, unleashing your pleasure, coming back to your pleasure and those things. And I think that's important to do healing through that. But also, like, are you fluttering from flower to flower of sensation and pleasure? Or are you like a hawk-eyed bird flying directly toward your objective? I mean, one is feminine and one is masculine. But, I think the spiritually strong, in a way, have a higher vision that they're, like, marshaling their life towards in all ways. And instead of, just vagabonding around being a hippie, right? And, like, that hippiness, I guess, is something I'm kind of averse to. Although a lot of my friends are hippies, I definitely have some of that energy in me. But that fluttering aimlessly is something that may work to a lot of people's detriment. Always seek the beautiful in life and add to it. Turn aside from forms of vulgarity and crudeness. I just saw in like the top 25 pieces of modern art or whatever, they're all terrible. There's no real beauty in it. Like, you look at like the Sistine Chapel, you look at Greek and Roman architecture and sculpture work, you look at the paintings of the Renaissance, and a lot of even modern art is creating beautiful stuff. But like what the world promotes as the best or like modern art is what is going on here. Maybe I'll throw it on the screen, but like in the top 25 pieces of modern art or whatever is a German policewoman squatting to pee, like a sculpture of it. And it's like, it's not beautiful, it's not moving, it's not inspiring. And it like things like this are promoted. You walk into a modern art gallery and you see like the most weird, crude, like degenerate forms of art. And a lot of people would fight me on that. Again, this is probably a controversial video, but it's facts. Like, Leonardo da Vinci spent literally a year just drawing out the proportions for his paintings, right? People spend like 20 minutes splashing black colors on a page and drawing some like weird disproportionate forms. And that's sold as like, high art today. Very interesting. Like, and when the art is degenerate, it's evidence of a degenerate culture, I should make a whole video on beauty, truth, aesthetics. Really should. I've got so many different videos to make, but I enjoy reading from here. A man can be judged by the company he keeps, so make sure you're always in good company. Avoid all persons of bad repute, for they follow a path of destruction. Be vigorous and alive, never fearing hard work. No living man can ever fully renounce work or effort, so avoid being numbered among the dead. Man, Elidor or Jesus or whoever you are, you're spitting it straight. It's amazing. It's amazing. You read like this old book and it talks about, so much of it is about the masculine virtue and becoming a truly masculine man, in a sense, for all the men watching. Which is something the world is totally at war with. To be vigorous and alive, never fearing hard work, right? To be, valiant and courageous, the old classical virtues, right? Like, we don't honor that anymore. It's not our ideal. So it's like, where are we guiding our young men today? Let's talk about the mastery of life. I like these parts. Who are the masters of life? When you can ride the stormy seas of sorrow, when you are not overcome by pleasure, when you can control the passions, master fear, discard anger, and whatever comes, no matter what comes, maintain a quiet and steady manner, you will be a master of life. Again, it's the warrior's way. It's the mental habits of the warrior, the acceptance and making no assumptions in times of turmoil. It's the the self-discipline and self-control in times of peace or pleasure, right? When passions come, mastering them, mastering fear, discarding anger, like transmuting, like being the alchemist inside of you. Like, this is about the warrior's way. So much of this is the warrior's way. I think it's why I'm obsessed with the warrior's way. When you can accept all your obligations cheerfully, do your duty at all times, accept whatever comes, be it good or ill, with steadfast heart, remain calm in the midst of confusion and upheaval, you will be a master of life. The Master of Life echoes a lot of Stoic ideas, and especially if this is written, around like 100 AD, 50 AD, right after the death of Christ, basically, this work was written. You would think that the Stoic ideas, the Platonic ideas, a lot of the Greco-Roman world was very interconnected, right? Like a lot of Christianity is Neoplatonism, and Stoicism is heavily all throughout the Proverbs, all throughout Jesus' teachings. Like it's all, they're all connected. They're super connected. And the Master of Life here sounds like Stoic virtues. When you can temper all your desires with prudence, resist temptations to weakness, and bring all urges under control, when you can bring all senses into harmony, control all emotion, overcome the greed and possessions, smother unwholesome desires, you will be a master of life. This is a really high bar. I think there's some softness in there too, Not like control all emotions, but feel all emotions with the heart of a warrior. Overcome the greed for possessions, maybe transmute the greed for possessions, into, spiritual aspiration or noble aspiration of some kind. Smother unwholesome desires. I agree with that. You will be a master of life. The master of life works unselfishly for the good of mankind. He is inspired by the highest ideals of man. He knows that hatred and cruelty, lust and desire for possessions have their roots in the lower natures of men, in the beast within them. These things the masters learned long ago. Searching their hearts with wisdom, they found a stirring response to something greater and discovered the bond of union between man and the spirit. When the master of life knows his true nature and understands the unity of contact, he is freed from all delusion and sorrow. He rises into something greater above. Self-control and harmony form the first steps toward becoming a master of life. Harmony, meaning tranquility within and harmonious relationships without. I think we already talked about wa. It's the idea of wa. It's the idea of oneness within, oneness without, oneness with your true nature, harmony within your relationships, right? Self-control means self-control in all things. Even an artist must exercise self-control when creating. The tradesman must control his sharp tools, and the physician his knife. Everything man does requires self-control in one form or another. It's interesting, so much of the spiritual narratives today are all around surrender and letting go, which I think is super important and super hard and one of the greatest tests of life. But every time we mention surrender, or every book written about surrendering, should be matched with a book written about self-control and control in general. Control and surrender need to go hand in hand. So your left and your right, Self-control and creativity go hand in hand. Yeah, that's what Elidor just said. Duh. You, my disciples, must become masters of life, never regretting the past nor worrying about the future, but always applying yourselves to whatever is at hand and present. The disciples of life, the masters of life here sound like Jedi, literally. I think this is the Jedi code, to have no attachments, to never worry about the future, and always apply yourself completely to what is at hand and present. It's also the Warrior's code. It's interesting, the word Jedi actually comes from, I think, ancient Gaelic as like their priests and magi, which, Jesus is probably associated with to some degree. The masters of life know what are good thoughts and what are bad thoughts, the first being beneficial, the second not. They know what to tell and what not to tell. They know what to do and what not to do. They know what serves and what does not serve, what is good and what is bad. They know all that through trial and error. They know all that because they live. They try. They act boldly. They keep moving forward and they learn from the past. They make adjustments, Like you will never know what to do and what not to do until you make a lot of mistakes. I honestly think it's hard to realize what to do until you realize what not to do first, right? And so like the masters of life, first and foremost, live life, right? And seek mastery in life. I call upon each of you to take up your burden and travel a long road leading to mastership in life. The progress of all pilgrims who have taken this road is indicated by their conduct. The instability has been left behind. The excesses are gone. The demanding desires are dropped. The spitefulness, greed, and conceit have been discarded. Wickedness and maliceness are thrown aside. One by one, they have been They have been cast off. as a snake sheds its skin. Sloughed off as the snake sheds its skin. That is the story of my life, right? I mean, I started this journey with a lot of different addictions and a lot of different things. And slowly over the years, just like reeling in the indulgences, cutting back on the distractions, the things that don't serve, purifying myself, growing into certain virtues. Like, even now, I just had to give up tobacco again. It's been very hard, but it's been a worthy challenge for a warrior. Just like love the cravings, love the pain of it. The excesses are gone. It's like the strongest men I know. Think about this. The strongest and most upright men that I know, and you probably know, have the least indulgences, right? They don't need the sugar. They don't need the woman. They don't need the smokes. They don't need the drugs. They don't need the phone. They've really cut back and mastered their indulgences. And you can sense the maturity in their conduct, right? As masters of life, you will call upon others to follow you in the pilgrimage. They will have to be resolute and strong, willing to devote their whole lives to serving the cause of truth. They will have to study diligently the passages of the Scriptures and search ever deeper into the innermost recesses of their being. Their first step will be in overcoming the greatest of all men's delusion, that of thinking the body comprises the whole being. As masters of life, you will set an example far beyond reach of commonplace man. You will be known from others by a profound serenity and resolute steadfastness, just as the commonplace man is distinguished by ignorance, by restlessness, the urge to hide himself in pleasure, and by enslavement to prejudice and emotion. Wow. You will be known by others for a profound serenity and resolute steadfastness. Any masters of life watching this with me? Poise and confidence, the marks of real wisdom and knowledge, distinguish the masters of life. Unsteadiness, shiftiness, unreliability, ever-changing opinions, and fluctuating loyalties distinguish the commonplace man. Undue consideration for the outer body and the satisfaction of its desires marks the commonplace man, and his concern for material things is the prime cause of his delusion. In a master of life, the mind has escaped from worldly delusions, like a bird freed from its cage, and is the liberated mind, every doubt is stilled by certainty. That would be nice if every doubt could be stilled by certainty in this very uncertain time we live in. Wow. AI, you see that shit coming out yet? Yeah, that's scary. I think I'm going to call this video The Masters of Life versus Commonplace Man. Seems to be the theme we're hitting on. Develop through meditation, contemplation, never indulge, blah, blah, blah. A lot more stuff. Ooh. I was going to end it right there, but chapter 9, I just saw the words, the great path of the true way. And whenever I see the great path of the true way, we have to read on. Because that is what we're reviving here. As warriors, as spiritual leaders, is the great path of the true way is what we must revive. These are the sacred scriptures which are not like other scriptures. They are the scriptures of those who follow the great path of the true way. They are not for the mocker, the unbeliever, the man of worldly affairs, or the evildoer. They shall move forward with the ages, keeping abreast of man as he advances. They must evolve to keep pace with his growing intelligence, but he must also evolve spiritually. If he does not, then they must assume the burden and come forth to lead him. There are men satiated only with worldly learning, who have fallen into the pit dug by their own books. They are gorged and uncomfortable. Their diversity of opinions and thought confuses them. The study of the sacred scriptures is not for the curious. It is useless unless the student knows where he is headed, his destination, unless he has an end in view. Though the truth within the sacred scriptures is unalterable, can never change, the revelation can always be interpreted according to man's progress. The hidden truths are to be made available to man whenever he is ready. The spiritual man, who is truly awakened, sees much more of the world than the commonplace man, who sees no more than the letters and words. Yet words are a forest in which man easily loses his way. Fine sentences and a grand manner of expression may just be a lure and a covering for a pit and a stake. Francis Bacon wrote something similar. He said all the philosophers who are, stuck, with like verbal games and metaphysical and logical puzzles and all these things, and the analytical philosophers and all these stuff. They're just weaving cobwebs of the mind because they're not engaging with the world. And as Elidor would say, they're not engaging with the goal, right? If they're unengaged with the goal, then they've dug a pit with their own books. Very interesting. I kind of just said what Elidor says in the next thing. Though there are those who talk about spiritual things, but do no more than weave a web of words to trap the unwary. Man, to derive benefit from a bottle of physique, of physic, the contents must be taken. Merely reading the inscriptions will affect no cure. That's literally what I just said. To derive benefits from a medicine, the contents must be taken. Merely reading the inscriptions will affect no cure. And spiritual scriptures such as this are medicine, right? I mean, it's amazing how sometimes my thoughts are reflected into Colburn, and the Colburn's reflected in my thoughts. Man, you just got to read it. You just got to try her out. Pure reason, like bitter essence, is worthless alone. Even as the essence must be palatable and drinkable by the addition of water, so must pure reason be diluted by faith. I love this. It's so true. Like, the philosophers are all stuck in pure reason and stuck in their minds. I mean, they won't be led to the profound experiences of the mystery, of the profound, that can only be acquired through faith and aspiration. Like, you need the faith and you need the aspiration united with reason. It's it's like the occultist is like, and the philosopher are like all reason, and then the mystic is like all devotion and faith based. And like, there needs to be, the mix between the scientist and the priest, right? There needs to be that mix if you are to really have the spiritual experiences and like understand the mystery going on here. The sacred scriptures are the midwife and nurse of the soul spirit. Some awaken the soul spirit by meditation. Sometimes it is awakened through a vision. It is sometimes awakened through good works, and others through labor. It can be awakened by creativity and love. There are many means to suit the numerous conditions of men. A few may not feel the stirrings of the awakening soul spirit. Some may rely only on the words of others, but because they believe and act accordingly, these too shall awaken to conscious survival. That is basically the end. Hell yeah, my friends. Thank you for watching and studying the sacred scriptures with me. Let me get back to the full video. This is Reality Files. This was the Kolbrin Bible. I really enjoyed sharing with you guys tonight. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more Esoteric Nights like this. Let me know your favorite part, your thoughts on the controversial aspects, and I'll see you at the next time. Peace.